gang, Alan here with a couple foliage updates for you. So I wanted to talk about a couple things real quick. Let's just go back to our scene here. I've been in here, setting up stuff for the mesh module. Got trees on this rock. I gotta refresh this guy. I got grass on that rock. Cool. But I ran into some weirdness that has plagued us in the past that you've probably maybe run into also, where objects come out rotated when they go through FR, prefabs of things. And a good example of that is this fern, which I was trying to set up. Where'd you go? Right here. Of course, it's going to look correct now. But normally it's like this, right? You're like, what am I doing? That's fine, but I think this guy is in a weird state, right? Like these things have been rotated, you'll notice. You're like, that fern seems fine, but then when we turn on the indirect provider, it's like tiny and it's rotated 90 degrees, right? Oh no, disaster. Okay, so the reason we don't do this is we don't want to figure out the actual LOD and we don't want to have a matrix array for every possible LOD for everything, right? That's too much. It's too much math. And when we're trying to go fast, the least amount of things and the least amount of math is the best. So in the past, we've just not solved this and told you to you know, be better, I guess. Make better video games. Okay, but that's kind of a hassle. And you usually don't notice it till it's too late, and then it's like, oh, I don't actually want to go into modeling software and fix this because maybe it's really super broke. But in this case, if we look, all our LODs are just rotated, and then our fern itself is fine, right? So if we just transpose these numbers, it'll work. So you could do that yourself. You could be like, oh, okay, -90, and then put -90 in here, and then put all the scales in, and then get these things back to identity, right? 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, right? But why bother? I'll just do it for you. So now if you go down here and you click on a prototype, I've added a validate prefab button. Oh, another thing, nobody's noticed. The density slider was missing for details. Put that back in. So I don't know how none of us noticed. I'd written all the code to do it, but I just never set the flag right. That's typical. Too much stuff. All right, so under here we can hit validate prefab, and it pops up this new prototype validator window. Cool. You can also get to it under here, window, foliage. Oh no, it didn't want to show up. Oh, it showed up down here. No, that's vertex painter. Well, that's annoying. We'll figure out why that's not in there. But you can assign your prefab here. If you click this button, it'll put it in there for you. You can click Run Validation Report. It'll tell you a bunch of stuff. It'll be like, hey, your thing's a non-identity transform. That's bad. It'll say, hey, this render is disabled. That's okay because this prefab is already an indirect game object provider. So it's going to turn those renderers off. I may make this little validator smarter before I actually push this to like skip that state so it doesn't freak you out, because I know you all are just going to not read any of this or think about what's going on and just tell me it's wrong. But there you go. There's also a button here for fix LOD transforms. So we can click that and it'll do some business real fast. And then if we go here, back to our prefab and our project, all of our things are now at 90, at 2.54. If we open this guy up in preview mode, all of our LODs are now zeroed and one'd out, and so it'll just work. Now it's goofy in here because I think some stuff's applied, or we just need to refresh this guy. I don't know, he doesn't want to play ball, but it'll work now. Oh, it's because he didn't get a position. That's why. That's what's wrong. Fix yourself. There you go. He had an override on his rotation. Silly me. All right, So there you go. You'll be back in business that way. Something else to keep in mind that we haven't talked about in a very long time, but is worth remembering, because I've seen some of you with outrageous numbers of LODs and so forth. If you go in here, there'll be some controls for culling distances here. See, like this one's telling you the final 1% of this LOD is completely culled and will be ignored. If you have fading turned on and stuff, you may want to turn on draw options and come in here and set some of this stuff up. Because it'll give you some tooling. You can just turn it on and mess with it for a bit and turn it back off. But this will do some fixing for you if your culling distances don't match your draw distances. Gives you some controls in here that sort of automatically show up if you're in a funky state. Like if you're culling 50% of the draw distance or whatever, but then you crank the draw distance up here up to, a gazillion, and then you're like, I can't see my thing even though my draw distance is way up. Well, it's because you're culling your LOD, right? So when you're trying to figure out draw distance stuff, you got material shader fading, whatever's going on with whatever shader you're running, whatever your LOD group is doing, and then whatever the actual draw distance is for your thing, plus or minus any overrides. There's a lot of boxes to check, so try to keep it all in your brain, and good luck. So any questions about this new little validator? Help you fix your transforms right here. Now that may wig out. It shouldn't. That may wig stuff out. Another thing to mention here is if your LOD transforms are not uniform, you're on your own. You gotta do that for real, and it will puke out an error and tell you like, hey, it's super broke, right? Like if LOD, like this sort of thing happens a lot. This like 90-degree rotation in this scale thing. This is because in the modeling software, they like built this in feet instead of meters, and Unity defaults to meters, even though it doesn't really purport to do so. Yeah. And then the 90-degree rotation is because they're in like a Z up modeling space instead of a Y up modeling space. They didn't get their export settings just right. Now you could fix scale pretty easy by changing scale factor here, but and axis conversion here, checking this box may just do it, and then you don't even have to mess with all this stuff. So that's something to keep in mind. But if you end up with like you didn't freeze all your transforms or delete your history or whatever, reset your matrices or transformations in your modeling software, and you end up with an LOD that like visually matches up but is then a goofy size, FR is not going to play ball with that. You're going to zoom out and hit LOD2, and LOD2 is going to be way bigger or way smaller than you expect, or rotate it or whatever. So we have to make some concessions and be careful about things in order to have maximum speed. And it's not worth making everything terrible just to babysit some wonky assets. So there you go. If you run into those, fix them, or let those content creators know, like, hey, it'd be great if this was uniform. Like it could be wonky as long as it was uniform wonky. We can deal with that. But yeah, if they're internally all over the place, we can't do it. We just do our best to get it to the first. If they all match, then we can fix it for you. Cool. Hope that makes sense. More as it develops. As always, folks, enjoy.